I just pressed the Let's Go Live button, so let's wait for the stream to fire up all across the fruited plain of the internet before we go ahead and get started. We can't be rambling off into the ether without some business connecting the tubes. And it looks like it's working, so let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Yes, we shall. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live, the show that spotlights misconduct involving police, prosecutors, and politicians. My name's Robert Govea. I'm a criminal defense attorney, and today we are talking about Biden Impeachment Fever, baby. Congress has a fever, and the only thing that's going to satisfy it is some more impeachment talk. And so we're going to go through this. We've got several clips here. McCarthy said, well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. He said, we're going to consider an impeachment inquiry. And he's talking about this as though the evidence that we're seeing about the Biden crime family is enough to cause critical mass in the House of Representatives such that there will be some action, something we've been waiting for a long time here. And of course, this comes on the back of revelations from David Weiss, the prosecutor who was assigned to the Hunter Biden investigation. And I've got a letter here from the Department of Justice that says David Weiss is actually willing to testify. He's willing to come out and tell us everything. Little caveat, only after the investigation is closed. Oh, so once Hunter takes his plea deal, then David Weiss is going to come and tell us about everything? Well, that's a little too late. We want to know what happens now before you close this whole thing up, because after it's closed, then they're going to say there's nothing further to do with this case. And of course, that's what people are trying to avoid. That's the whole point of the double standard. So we've got three stories now that are illustrating the levels of corruption. First of all, I want to go through this one. Hunter Biden, apparently one of the prosecutors who was working in the same building as his team, Leslie Wolf, and the people who were investigating him, somebody in the same building is sending emails to Hunter. I don't know if he worked on the prosecution or not, saying, love you, brother. Hope everything's going well. We also have, apparently, at the Hunter Biden Art Gallery, where he's got his mucus COVID paintings, he's selling those to people who are in Biden's orbit, who then get promoted and appointed to certain key positions. So not only was he involved in corruption back when Joe Biden was VP and in the years following, but he's still doing it. And rather than transacting in Ukraine corrupt LLCs, now he's doing it in corrupt art sales. So we've got that. And of course, we also have an update from Fox News. They say that Hunter was in his dad's Corvette at the same time that he made those threatening text messages. All right. So he's saying, my daddy's going to come after you, China, from his daddy's Corvette. He's so pathetic. It's amazing. But we'll go through all of that. And then we'll get back to impeachment, because Marjorie Taylor Greene was on the floor of the House today, fired up. She actually brought the FD 1023 form with her into Congress and held it up and said, this is just ridiculous. And so we'll go through that. Kevin McCarthy is then going to walk us through what impeachment does, because the press is asking him questions like, is this going to do anything? Is this going to mean anything? And he'll explain it all for us. Then we want to go through what is the latest with the January 6th saga. And so Julie Kelly, you know, on Twitter, we talk about her amazing work here regularly. She put together an amazing thread that details this guy, Aquilino Gonell, who is one of the J6 officers we've heard a lot from, one of the four guys they brought out and paraded in front of everybody to show us how awful this fake insurrection really was. And so we'll go through this story because there's new video footage that shows that maybe he wasn't quite as injured as he let on. And you can be the judge of this. You know, he could be pumped full of adrenaline and walking around totally injured. And maybe he did need multiple surgeries and 9 months off, or however long he took off. Maybe he did, but you'll be the judge of it, because he says that his thumb still hurts right there. And this guy has been testifying in January 6 cases saying that, you know, these people were a part of a violent insurrection and they attacked me and they caused me all sorts of pain and anguish. And therefore, judge, throw him away, lock up the key. But the new footage is causing people to ask questions about this, saying, did he really hurt his foot? He's like walking around and kicking stuff. Did he really hurt his shoulder? Did he really have bloody hands? Because we can see his hands and they don't look all that bloody. So we'll go through it, all courtesy of our friend Julie Kelly. Then we've got an update on what's happening in 2024, because it feels like deja vu. And for those of you who were with us in 2022, and I know many of you were, thank you, I appreciate it. We're grateful to have you here. We're going to go through it all again. Gosh. So if you remember what was happening in 2020, this is happening even earlier now. We covered litigation in various states. We talked about Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Georgia. We had Arizona. We put them all in a chart and we're going through them one by one, analyzing the election litigation that was taking place. All of this was being done in the back of COVID, and that was the justification to change the rules so that they could win around the margins. Well, it's happening again, and this time they're starting early. We are way further out than we were last time, and guys like Marc Elias are filing lawsuits in various states, suing the election commissions, suing the secretaries of states to get the rules changed to serve them. And in Donald Trump's case in 2020, it was a 20,000 vote margin. All right. Very, very small margin. These little rule changes are consequential. And so Marc Elias filed a new lawsuit in Wisconsin where he's saying that their absentee ballot rules that they changed after 2020 are unconstitutional, and that you should be allowed to drop off your ballots wherever you want, and you should be allowed to not sign them, because all of that is so unconstitutional because signatures are anti-voting or something. So we'll go through that. It's all happening again. It's like I'm having flashbacks, like, oh gosh, here we go again. They're also filing in Arizona and other places, which we'll talk about. And then we'll wrap it up with an update on what's happening with the J6 saga. Big story is that lately Giuliani apparently gave Jack Smith a bunch of sensitive documents about 2020. Here for a while, we've been talking about the intent, the mens rea, the mental state that the government is going to have to prove in order to convict Trump or to even charge Trump. They've got to show there's something there. And they're going back with a fine-tooth comb, parsing through all the 2020 stuff to see if Trump either actively knew that the election was lost from his perspective and marched on anyways, or whether Trump should have known. In other words, whether all of this data would have caused a reasonable person to act a certain way, and Trump didn't do that. Therefore, that's recklessness. Therefore, recklessness equals knowingly. Therefore, equals mens rea, which is what they're trying to do. So we'll follow the bouncing ball through the prosecution. We'll say hello to Alyssa Farah Griffin, who is a former Trump official in the White House. I don't know what her involvement was, but she's got an opinion on this stuff, as does Matt Gaetz, who's going to explain that this is all election interference, and Jack Smith and the Bidens are doing this because they've got nothing else, man. And so we'll go through all of this and more, my friends. You can see we've got a lot of business to attend to today. And this morning we had a great members only stream. We do member only morning streams. If you'd like to join us, you can join us at either on Locals or on YouTube. But this morning we talked about this buoy barrier that is taking form in Texas. And of course, Texas is going to keep this puppy up. But the DOJ says, how dare you enforce your border? And so they sued Texas. We talked a little bit about that. And Greg Abbott just blasted them, wrote in response a beautiful letter back saying, look, you guys have failed to secure our borders for us, so we'll just go ahead and do it ourselves. And so we talked about that this morning. We appreciate all of our members who support the work that we do over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We appreciate you joining us. We try to really deliver for our members with member-only morning streams, a little private, a little bit more intimate, where we talk about the daily updates on the Trump docket, on the presidential schedule, what's happening in Congress, and some other fun stuff. We've also got our brand new website that I'd love it if you checked out, and I'd love your feedback on it, actually, robertgovea.com. And when you head on over there, you can sign up for our daily newsletter to get summaries of the show every day after the show. Get a summary in your inbox. If you miss anything, it's got links to all the segments, and it's also got links to the reports. So if you'd rather not watch a full video, sometimes I know they can be long, you can read the summary, all synthesized right there for you at robertgovea.com. And you can also access this entire mind map. So literally this entire document on your screen, you can access it when you sign up for the newsletter. Get the link, download all the PDFs, download all the videos, whatever you want, everything I'm showing you on the screen, available, robertgovea.com. And so we also want to say what's up to our friends at Field of Greens, where it's proper to be nutrified and fortified and healthified. And it's a good way to lose some of those leftover pandemic pounds, isn't it? But how sick are you? Of all the ads for weight loss pills and fad diets, goodness, they're everywhere. We've all been there. We've all done that. And we just know that they just don't work. But you know what does? Eating 5 healthy servings of fruits and vegetables every day. You do that, man, the weight would probably just fall right off. But look, vegetables, not a fan. And fruit, who's got time to prepare that every day? Instead, let's talk about Field of Greens. Now, Field of Greens is a science-backed formula. Specific fruits and vegetables that you're not going to find in any other product. Proper nutrition reboots your metabolism so you burn calories faster and lose weight a healthier way. And Field of Greens is the only brand backed by a better health promise. Yes, you're going to look healthier and feel healthier fast, but the greater proof going to come in at your next doctor's visit when you walk in there and he says, "Oh my gosh, you've lost weight. What are you even doing here?" Keep it up. And so let's get you started. Go on over to fieldofgreens.com, fieldofgreens.com, and enter in code Robert when you check out so you can save 15% off your entire order. And let's not forget, the vegetables want to be eaten. You're doing them a favor. You're making them fulfill their whole reason for existing. Eat your vegetables. All right. And now let's get right to it, my friends. Serious business on the day. Congress has a fever, and the only remedy is more impeachment. A lot of conversations about this taking place, not only from people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who says, all right, enough already. We've seen it. Call it. It's time. But also the Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy. He made 2 comments about this. One on a news channel where he said, all right, look, man, we keep seeing this whistleblower stuff. We keep seeing more evidence of financial transactions, emails. Now the White House is saying that they weren't in business together. It's like, all right, if this continues on, it's time for an impeachment inquiry. And he explained what this does and why this might give them some more power to dig into this further. We're going to go through all of it, including more evidence of the corruption and criminality in the Biden family, from art sales to being in daddy's Corvette to prosecutors sending Hunter emails while they may or may not have been on the investigation. But it all starts with Kevin McCarthy. He's kind of getting irritated about this. And we here on this channel have been wondering, are they going to do anything? Are they going to just send another letter? I mean, we read through a lot of letters here, and I like reading through letters as much as anybody. But we also would like to see some action. Here's Kev.
That they bribed the Bidens, okay? This was given to the FBI. When Bill Barr finally found out about it, he sent it to his office in Philadelphia. They actually said that this was very credible. The FBI kept this from the IRS individuals for them ever to see it. So not only do they claim that they were bribed, we now find information that 16 out of 17 payments from Romania were provided to the Biden shell companies while he was vice president. When President Biden was running for office, he told the American public that he's never talked about business. He said his family has never received $1 from China, which we now proved is not true. We now have some of the most credible whistleblowers. These 10-year IRS agents who have come forward said that the Biden family has been treated differently, that what Weiss has told us is different than what Garland and Weiss has told the public. And you're sitting here today where now you have found millions of foreign money, just what the 1023 alleges they did to Biden's family. Now we found that it has funneled through shell companies. If you're sitting in our position today, we would know none of this if Republicans had not taken the majority. We've only followed where the information has taken us.
And you got to do something about it.
Hannity, this is rising to the level of impeachment inquiry, which provides Congress the strongest power to get the rest of the knowledge and information needed. Because this president has also used something we have not seen since Richard Nixon, used the weaponization of government to benefit his family and deny Congress the ability to have the oversight.
If we are talking about millions of dollars coming from our top geopolitical foes, and that the Biden family has been corrupted and took in all of this money, and he was complicit in that, wouldn't that mean that we have a criminal enterprise as president of the United States that had to be on every level compromised by countries that are not particularly fond of us?
In other words, what else do you need?
Well, it's interesting that the Biden family runs, if they say, a company but never had an office and shell companies to be able to pay through. But if they really ran it for foreign countries, why didn't you get money from France, from Germany, from UK? Why does it have to be from China, Romania,
Ukraine.
in these countries
Ukraine.
that have real challenges and had
Ukraine.
problems going through? I believe we will follow this
Skipped
all
over
the
that
way
one.
to the end, and this is going to rise to an impeachment inquiry the way the Constitution tells us to do this, and we have to get the answers to these questions.
All right, so they are going to now engage on an impeachment inquiry. All right, well, we'll see what that looks like. There's a lot to inquire about, no doubt about it. But here is a big problem with this whole deal. It might be too little too late. I mean, Hunter is racing to the finish line right now. They want to get this plea deal done, buttoned up, and closed out so the DOJ can say, we're done here. No, sorry, we don't comment on closed investigations. You know, it's done, it's over, it's open with. We've already answered your questions. There's nothing else to talk about. They're racing to get it done. And Congress is racing to stop it because this is now an open wound for Joe Biden, and they're trying to expose all of the other criminality that they have been covering up for a long time. But the DOJ says, well, hold on a minute. We are being open and honest with you. Hey, you know what? We're actually willing to talk to you. Congress, you've got all these questions. You want to hear from David Weiss. He's the prosecutor in charge of investigating Hunter. Sure, we'll send him over to you. And so they sent this letter back over to Jim Jordan, chairman on the Committee on the Judiciary. They say, hey, dear Chairman Jordan over in Congress, and this letter is coming from this guy, Carlos Felipe Uriarte. And we've heard of him before here, seen this name, signed digitally, Assistant Attorney General, pals around with Merrick. So he says this over to Jim Jordan. He says, all right, Jim. All right, this letter responds to you and your letter to my boss, Merrick Garland. I know you sent it a little while ago, and I know you want interest in an individual ongoing criminal investigation led by David Weiss. It's Hunter. You want an individual update. He says, you know, the DOJ appreciates Congress, your Judiciary Committee's acceptance of our offer for David Weiss to testify before a public hearing. We're going to offer him to you. Thank you for accepting. The department is ready to offer Attorney Weiss to testify shortly after Congress returns from August district work period, as more fully described below. Oh yeah, Congress takes the entire month of August off to go back and do district work. And so conveniently, they're like, well, he's not even, you guys aren't even going to be in session. So since August is going to be, we'll deal with it after August. Well, that is when they'll have the plea deal done. The DOJ says, across administrations, the department has long recognized, meaning us, the DOJ, long recognized its obligation to protect law enforcement work from even the perception of political interference. Even the perception, unless it's, of course, prosecuting your political enemies. They'll tap dance around even the perception to protect Hunter, but they will eviscerate 2.5 centuries of American civility in political law to go prosecute their political opponents. So just so we're clear, I mean, this is one of the most hypocritical agencies you've ever seen. They say, we're going to protect the law, including from Congress, you people. Our longstanding principles and duty to take care of that and that the law will be faithfully executed requires us to maintain the confidentiality of sensitive law enforcement information and to protect attorneys so that they can do their jobs free from political pressures. These concerns are heightened while a matter is open and investigative steps, prosecutorial decisions, or judicial proceedings are ongoing. And at the same time, we're deeply concerned about misrepresentations by you, Jim, whether deliberate or arising from, misunderstandings that could unduly harm public confidence in the even-handed administration of justice to which we are dedicated. All right. Don't fall out of your chairs laughing on that one. Holy moly. He says, we don't appreciate your misrepresentations, and they could unduly harm public confidence. It's amazing they think there is any public confidence left. Is there? pretty sure not. The only people who are thrilled with the DOJ are a sliver of Democrats who are thrilled with prosecuting political opponents. The department, therefore, reaffirms U.S. Attorney Weiss's commitment to providing public testimony consistent with our department policy to protect these principles. They say your letter refers to 2 assertions made by the IRS whistleblowers, and they want Weiss to explain the scope of his authority. They say, yeah, Weiss is the appropriate person to speak on these issues, as he's the senior department official and he's the person with direct knowledge of the facts. But the department believes it is strongly in public interest to hear from David Weiss. And to address these issues, we're going to make David Weiss available to appear at a public hearing, which is great news. We're happy about this. We want that like tomorrow. They say that they'll be willing to do this. Guess when? Oh, look. September 27th, September 28th, October 18th, October 19th. They say, to be clear, the most appropriate time for any testimony on these subjects, just so we're crystal on this, is after the matter is closed. The appropriate time to talk about this, according to the DOJ, we're happy to talk to you about it once we've already committed the crime, once we've already squeezed this thing through. Then we'll talk to you about it. And you know what the answer is going to be from David Weiss? It's closed. We've already investigated it. There's nothing else to talk about. We can't comment on individual. It's going to be all we can't comment. It's going to be the same crap that we're used to. But they'll just do it after it's closed, so there's no repercussions. There's no possibility that a judge might reject it. Especially under the circumstances where the matter is pending before a court and subject to judicial supervision, not to mention the legal and ethical bars that limit what the department can say while the matter is pending. While the testimony at this early juncture must be appropriately limited to protect the ongoing matter, the department acknowledges your stated interest in addressing this, and as such, David Weiss, such as U.S. Attorney Weiss's authority to bring charges wherever he deems appropriate. And so again, they're going to close this up so that we can't dig into that. He says, as the department has repeatedly stated, we remain committed to working with you. We are therefore deeply concerned by your notification today that the committee has authorized deposition subpoenas for the individuals identified in your letter. So Jordan's going to send depots out. Subpoenas out for depots. DOJ's flipping out. Any attempts at compulsory process are unjustified and premature. The committee authorized subpoenas less than a business day after your letter and before the stated deadline in the letter. Man, so Congress is playing hard and fast right now, and they're unhappy about it. They say, wait a minute, that's what we do. We send letters and then complain about it the next day in court, like they did with Trump. And the judge, Eileen Cannon, backhanded him over that. So now they're angry that they're on the receiving end of this. It has been less than a month since committee's original request and a little more than a week since the department responded. And during a staff discussion, we agreed to continue discussions. And so why aren't you continuing discussions? We think that we should work together. We hope this information is helpful. Please don't hesitate to contact us if we can provide any additional assistance regarding this or any other matter. Little bit of a panic there, okay? Very agitated and irritable from the DO. How dare you go so quickly? You didn't even give us till the deadline, and you're subpoenaing our people, and we said that we're going to make them available, but they're going to make them available in October, September or October when the whole thing's done. So, of course, Jim Jordan's going fast. From Carlos Uriarte. And this is sent over, copied to everybody in Congress, Ways and Means Committee. We've got Jason Smith, we know who he is, Jamie Raskin, James Comer, Gerald Nadler, the Waddler, and others. So that's great. Thank you, DOJ, for complying with the requests of Congress. In October, once the requests are moot and then nobody cares anymore because Hunter has already taken his plea deal. So not good enough. And we know that Congress is not happy about this. Marjorie Taylor Greene says enough already. And so we'll listen to what she had to say, but a couple quick stories on just how deep this corruption goes. So first and foremost, we know that there was David Weiss's office, which was investigating Hunter. And a former Biden lawyer served with the assistant Delaware prosecutor Leslie Wolf, who was freezing the big guy probe. Okay, so there's multiple layers here, but it's this big incestuous relationship where Hunter's lawyers from one of Joe Biden's remember, this guy's been in office for 30 plus years, and he's been running as senator in this campaign, and he's got relationships very deep. And so somebody who was working at the Department of Justice investigating Hunter has a very close connection to the Bidens. It's about as corrupt as it gets. A former deputy counsel named Alexander Mackler is the name of this person. He was a deputy counsel to Vice President Joe. And guess where he ended up? Shocking. Served as an assistant U.S. attorney of Delaware right alongside Leslie Wolf, the other woman who, according to the IRS whistleblowers, was responsible either directly or caused it to happen to warn Hunter's lawyers about the search of the storage unit. So a deputy counsel to VP Joe is now working at the DOJ right next to Leslie Wolf. Amazing. Who worked on the criminal probe into Hunter Biden and allegedly prevented investigators from asking about the big guy. All right. Mackler's history with Joe Biden includes being the campaign manager for Beau Biden in his successful run when he was attorney general. Biden appointed Mackler as deputy counsel to the vice president, according to his LinkedIn profile. Mackler then moved on, went over to the U.S. Attorney of Delaware, right alongside Wolf from 2016 to 2019, which is the era of this entire investigation. Incredible. During those years, Mackler and Hunter Biden remained in close connection. And how do we know that? The laptop. Here are a couple emails that Mackler sent to Hunter. Mackler is, just as a reminder, Mackler is working in the Department of Justice, hanging out, probably going to lunches with Leslie Wolf, who is the chief prosecutor on Hunter's case. Mackler sends an email to Hunter while he's being investigated, also by the DOJ, by the way. Says, I just finished, or actually this was, we don't know when the actual investigation started, but he was absolutely committing crimes at this point, especially the tax crimes, which go all the way back to 2014. Okay, so we don't know exactly when the start of the DOJ investigation was and whether Mackler at this moment in time was actively on the investigation. But Hunter was committing crimes that were the subject of a DOJ investigation. And we do know that the FBI got the laptop and all of those things in 2019. So this is earlier than that era. But they're still working on this together. And in these emails, okay, these emails will carry all the way into 2019. So in October 2016, he said, hey, Hunter, haven't heard from you in a while, and I'm thinking of you. Whoa. Anytime you're in DC and want to say hi, let me know. Love ya. All right, so now this guy is at the DOJ in 2016 to 2019, sending emails to Hunter, love ya. Fast forward to 2018, Hunter still committing crimes. He sends Hunter an email. He wants to catch up. He says, hey, Hunty, I just finished a hellacious couple of months in court, probably prosecuting other people who committed crimes. Now that I have a chance to breathe, was wondering how life is on your end. Last you told me you were out in LA. Give me a call sometime. We can catch up. Love you, brother. Leslie Wolf's colleague sending emails to Hunter from the DOJ when he was employed there. Love you, brother. Love you, man. Okay, now that is incredible. I mean, the conflict there is not direct, but the principle of the fact is there's a lot of closeness there, a little too close for comfort, in other words. Now, there's another exclusive from Business Insider. They tell us that Hunter Biden's gallery sold his art, which if you ever saw it, looks like COVID and mucus in a moldy bowl that you've left out in your college dorm room for too long. Hunter Biden's gallery sold art to a Democratic donor friend whom Joe Biden then named to a prestigious commission. Amazing. So it's like almost like the same pattern. People pay Hunter. Hunter exercises his powers of persuasion, and Joe Biden does something. Did this happen before previously? Oh, that's right. Hunter got paid $83,000 a month from Burisma. Burisma was under investigation by a prosecutor. Hunter leveraged his father to threaten to withhold $1 billion of U.S. aid to Ukraine. Guess what happened? Something got done. Joe Biden exercised his influence. Prosecutor was fired. Here, this Democratic donor wants to get appointed to a prestigious commission. How do I do that? I go buy one of Hunter's STD images and pays whatever that costs, and then boom, Biden turns around, you get appointed. Here's the story. On the campaign trail, Joe Biden pledged that there would be an absolute wall. Obviously, that's not true. In 2021, a New York art gallery debuted one of Hunter Biden's paintings, asking price $500,000. 500 grand. The White House said his team had a vetting process for verifying their identities, but turned out that didn't work out so well. Hunter Biden did, in fact, learn the identity of 2 buyers, according to 3 people familiar with the matter. One of those buyers is someone who got a favor from the White House, but we don't know when they purchased the art. The buyer, insider can reveal, is this woman, Elizabeth Hirsch Naftali, an LA real estate investor philanthropist. Naftali's influential in California Democratic circles, has given $13,000 to Biden, $30,000 to Democrats. In 22, she hosted a fundraiser for VP Kamala. Insider obtained internal documents from Hunter's gallery showing that a single buyer, these people are so disgusting and corrupt, $875,000 worth of his art, right? This is happening right now in real time. $875,000 of Hunter's paintings. One buyer. Have you seen it? He's not Picasso or something, man. The documents do not indicate the buyer's identity, which is unknown, which is also unknown to Insider at the time. In 2022, 8 months after the first art opening, Biden announced Hirsch Naftali's appointment to the Commission for the Preservation of America's Heritage Abroad. It's unclear whether Hirsch Naftali's purchase of the artwork occurred before or after the appointment, though. Membership on the commission is an unpaid position filled by campaign donors, same crowd that often winds up with ambassador appointments, right? So working your way up. She's a well-connected donor. We don't know. Did she buy the art before or after she was appointed? We don't know. But they're not going to answer. Hirsch Naftali didn't respond to requests for comments. It's just incredible. 870. He just started painting. He just got out of rehab like a decade ago. Just started painting. Well, he's really talented. Really, really talented. Shout out to all you artists out there. Gosh, amazing. Man, right in front of us, in front of our faces. So there's one more story before we hear from Congress. Now, the photos show that Hunter, who's a very, very talented artist now, and also an energy consultant with a brilliant portfolio, says that Hunter was in Daddy's Corvette when he was sending the Shakedown message, because the guy's just about as pathetic as they come. Photos from Hunter's laptop show that Joe Biden's son was there in Delaware in his home the same day as the alleged Shakedown messages. Biden was screaming at people, but Hunter was there. During the July 30th, 2017 discussion, Hunter told Zhao, I'm sitting here with my father. And apparently from the photos, like this one, here's Hunter Biden in Delaware, July 30th, 2017. Top House Republicans have described the message as a shakedown. And Hunter is literally the same day on July 30th, the same day as the threatening message. They show Hunter posing in the driver's seat of Daddy Biden's Corvette with 2 girls in the bikinis of his father's Wilmington home, right? There's Hunter, Real amazing American patriot with his American flag hat on in Daddy's Corvette. Incredible. So you see all of those stories just add up, and it's enough already. Congress is just tired of it. Marjorie Taylor Greene is one of those people. She says, all right, we got the FD 1023 form. She says, I already brought out my poster boards of Hunter's Biden, and I plastered that all over Congress. And so now here is an FD 1023 form as she explains why it's time to impeach.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On January 21st, 2021, I introduced articles of impeachment against Joe Biden. And less than 2 weeks later, I was kicked off all of my committees by House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. They said it was for Facebook comments and replies and likes, but we all know the truth. It was because my articles of impeachment on Joe Biden were correct. He was indeed abusing his power as Vice President of the United States. Now we have more information to prove that not only was I right then, but it was more damning than we already knew. But I'd like to roll back. President Trump was wrongfully impeached twice, and both of these impeachments must be expunged by the House of Representatives. But
there's two resolutions going through. She's got one of them. The other one is Elise Stefanik. We covered that in prior videos.
What I'd like to talk about is the difference in the type of information we have. The Democrats brought out the Steele dossier. The Steele dossier was written as a Democrat political opposition research paper. The information was written by a contractor, and it was fed to the FBI.
Lapped it up.
With no transparency on subsources. The contractor had no primary source information, and the FBI operationalized uncorroborated claims to secure FISA warrant on political campaign official of opposing political party. Information was later debunked by Congress, the Inspector General, and Special Counsel investigations. But the mainstream media won Pulitzer Prizes on the bogus Russia narrative.
We're so
And then
brave.
they led the witch hunt, leading to impeaching President Trump over a phone call with the president of Ukraine. But let me tell the House what type of information we actually have. We have an FBI form called an FD 1023 form, and here's the difference for the public listening. On the 1023 form, the information originated from an FBI informant who'd been relied upon for many years and was considered the FBI's top informant.
Even paid.
It was also paid
figures.
$200,000 for multiple years by the FBI. Information was written by the FBI agent in official FBI form and relied on no additional subsources. The FBI informant was a direct eye and ear witness to the information provided. The FBI apparently took no action to further the investigative claim. The FBI has refused to describe any investigative steps to assess the investigative information. Therefore, it has not been debunked, despite White House's lies and false claims. The mainstream media has largely ignored the story or parroted the White House false claim. What does the FD 1023 form tell you? I'll tell you exactly what it says, because not only have I read it, I also have it in my possession right here.
Yeah.
And this is a form that the entire American people, the entire public should have because it's unclassified. But Christopher Wray, the director of the FBI, forced us.
And I just want to pause on this. I think she's going to get to it, but it finally has been released. And remember how long it has taken to get that one document? How much we had to go through? Multiple letters from Comer, multiple debates. They said, we'll show it to you. They flashed the document, then they hid it. Then they said, we'll have a briefing. They had multiple meetings where Comer showed up and then left irritated. But finally, we've got the document. And so there is hope. These things do take time. And now we've got the FD 1023 that's been released courtesy of Chuck Grassley being waved around on the floor of the House.
To read it in a skiff and would not hand it over to us. Thankfully, Senator Chuck Grassley released this form because it was provided to him by a brave whistleblower.
Getting some progress.
This form entails the damning information that then Vice President Joe Biden took a $5 million bribe from the oligarch that owns Burisma Not only did Joe Biden take a $5 million bribe, so did Hunter Biden. And what did Joe Biden deliver as Vice President of the United States?
Fired prosecutors.
He got Viktor Shokin, the Ukrainian prosecutor general, fired from his job. How did Joe Biden, Vice President, get that done? He threatened to withhold $1 billion of U.S. aid to Ukraine until Viktor Shokin was fired. And you want to know what? He was fired. In 2016, Joe Biden himself bragged to the Foreign Council and told them that he got him fired. He bragged about it. It's on video. But that's not all they've done. Hunter Biden has also gotten his father on the phone over 24 times to talk with his business partners and talk with them about the business that they are doing. And even more so, in our possession, through our investigations on our Republican-led committees, we also have a WhatsApp chat that says, from Hunter Biden, I am sitting here with my father, and we would like to understand why the commitment made has not been fulfilled.
When he's sitting there in Daddy's Corvette.
Joe Biden. Tell the director that I would like to resolve this now before it gets out of hand, and now means tonight. And it continues on. What I'm demanding is that the Republican-led House of Representatives move forward on an impeachment inquiry on Joe Biden. Because this type of corruption should never be allowed to stand. We must expunge President Trump's wrongful impeachments, and we must impeach Joe Biden.
Woo! Get it, Marjorie. Fired up, baby. Impeachment fever running around Congress. And I mean, how can you really argue with that? She went through it very nicely, very beautifully, articulated all the multiple layers of corruption that cover up years, millions of dollars, the big guy, the whole thing. Everybody can see it. Now the question is Congress going to do anything about it? And so Kevin McCarthy was speaking to America and issued a statement about President Joe Biden today.
Administration used to all these answers. I would think the Biden family would want to answer these questions as well, provide the documents instead of holding them back. We're watching this administration use government much like Richard Nixon used by denying us to get the information that we need. So that's what's the answer to the question. Yes, sir.
What would an impeachment inquiry allow congressional investigators that the oversight committees and judiciary committees don't already have? And how would you respond to Democrats' contention that the 1023 was in the possession of the Justice Department during the Trump administration under Attorney General Barr, and they found it not to be credible enough to move forward with an investigation?
Not true. Not true. If you listen to what Barr came forward, Barr said he moved the 1023 when he found out about it to the, I believe it was the Philadelphia Department of the Justice Department. That Justice Department came back and said that, and don't quote me because I got to get the right terms, exactly what they said, but they said there was more merit and more information. When have you found a Justice Department of attorneys to find more information than the FBI? The FBI did nothing with it. And you raise a very good point here because you bring up that. Well, we have now found from the IRS agents, the whistleblowers who came forth, that they were denied this document while they were investigating. Not only were they denied the document, when they had a meeting, then they were going to talk about it, they asked to be a part of it, and they were denied to be there. Now that raises lots of questions. You never want people to question that type of thing. You want to be forthcoming. So what an impeachment inquiry does, it gives us the apex of the power of Congress for Republicans and Democrats to gather the information that they need. So when we're continuing that, you raise a question like this, wondering what's right or wrong, you would want the truth as well, just as you're covering it for the American public. What that simply provides is that the American public has a right to know, and this allows Congress to get the information to be able to know the truth. Yes, ma'am.
What do you say to the moderates in your party who say you continue to side and appease the right wing on many issues, including
such as what?
On talking about an impeachment inquiry of President Biden, on appropriations, on a long list of things?
Well, I don't know, because you haven't quoted anybody. You just say something. You frame some brand of something. But let me answer your question. It's very forceful and truthful in this. I have nothing to do about who in the party. This is about America. And I raise to you. I've watched you on TV. You write every day about covering government. So right now you have a president who told you and every other American that he's never talked to as a family about business and they never got $1 from China. You now know that's not true.
That's the second time he's turned this back on the reporters. He did it to the other guy to his left. He's going through and he says, no, this is important to you. That's why I'm doing it, because it's important to you. Next one, I watch you on TV. I know this is important to you. That's why we're doing this.
You have a president, while he was vice president, that got 16 out of 17 payments from Romania while he was president. You now had never known that before he was elected, but you now have a document that the FBI had that didn't further to investigate, even though the Justice Department said there was merit, that said they were bribed and told they had to run through shell companies, which you never knew about, but now you know there are shell companies. And what they made this claim to be, you find that the form of which to pay in is actually what came through. You now have IRS whistleblowers who are not Republican, philosophically, who now say they were denied the ability to do their job. And in trying to do their job in the investigation of the Biden family, they were denied the 1023. Even in meetings where David Weiss has said one thing to them and different to the American public, different than the Attorney General had promised the American public, he said that they should be prosecuted. But now we have found out that the department actually called the Biden family attorneys, told them ahead of time where documents were, treated other people in politics differently, even went to the inaugural committee. Why would they give a heads up to the inaugural committee?
Amazing.
Why would they be denied the ability to go forward? They believe the investigation was hampered using political purposes to treat them differently. Now, as an elected official, having all this information, should I ignore it? No. Congress has a responsibility for an investigation wing. All I'm saying is, and I'm sure you'd probably ask the same question, where's the truth? You've got to get to the bottom of the truth. And the only way Congress can do that is go to impeachment inquiry that gives Republicans and Democrats the ability to get all the information. Hey, I think I got to open the floor. I'm sure we're going to be able to see each other a lot more.
All right, nice job there from Kev. He takes it directly back to the reporters when they criticize him for taking action. He says, well, you'd be interested in this. And I like that strategy. And of course, the question is, are they actually going to do anything? Will this go anywhere? A lot of talk, but what about the action? Time will tell. Of course, my friends, we're going to continue to cover this. And so thank you for subscribing. Thank you for liking this. Thank you for inviting somebody to come over and join us as the impeachment inquiries move forward. All right, now, let's turn our attention over to a little update on January 6th. Then we've got some Trump updates and some Wisconsin updates coming up. But here was an interesting new drop. The truth about a January 6th Capitol Hill police officer, Aquilino Gonell, is now up in the air. Questions about new video that was released because he said that something happened on January 6th, and the video kind of shows an alternative story. And so, as usual, this thread is from a great journalist reporter, somebody digging into all of this, our friend Julie Kelly on Twitter at Julie_Kelly2. She says this, she says, breaking. For 2.5 years, this Capitol Police officer known as Aquilino Gonell has lied about his injuries he sustained on January 6th. You're kidding me. No way. Seriously? He has testified under oath and in federal court proceedings that he suffered near-death injuries. Well, we're going to watch the video. New January 6th video, and Julie Kelly's been a part of the team investigating the additional footage, contradicts Gonell's claims that protesters inflicted head, shoulder, hand, and foot injuries so egregious that he required surgery and medical leave, and also mental health trauma. In an impact victim statement made in court in May, and remember, we've talked about various sentencing proceedings here. You get convicted, then you get sentenced, and when you get sentenced, generally what happens is the prosecutors make their case, the defense makes their case, government wants max time, defense wants minimum time. You have a third party pre-sentence report from the courts and they'll investigate it and give the court what's supposed to be a neutral opinion. But when you have victims, people who are physically injured, they get the opportunity to come speak and put together a victim impact statement. And sometimes they show up and they say minor things. Sometimes they show up, make a big deal out of it. Sometimes they don't show up at all. But this guy took full advantage, of course. In a victim impact statement made in court in May, Gonell told the judge that he was, quote, bleeding from both hands. Well, we'll check the video on that. That he had a maimed foot. All right, we'll see. That he was hit on the head, sprayed with pepper and bear spray, beaten, punched, pushed, pulled, and assaulted by many other rioters as they tried to gain entrance. But Julie says that here he is on video for several minutes near the body of Rosanne Boyland. Of course, we know that she passed away. After the protest and violence ended, his hands show no sign of injury, nor does his shoulder as he takes off his gear. Feet seems fine. In fact, he's kicking items out of the area. And his head, which had been protected by a riot helmet, shows no signs of injury either. So not only did Gonell lie to Congress and federal judges in his victim impact statement, he's repeatedly lied during media interviews and on social media about the experience. And so the full video is here. We're going to play it, but there's no audio on this video. What we have done here is we are adding in the interviews that he has given on top of that footage, and we'll watch them both together. So here's one clip, and I really encourage you to go and watch the full videos from Julie Kelly on her Twitter account. But it says, here is Gonell. He appears to have suffered no physical injuries, tearfully telling CNN about his woes. Another one. Sworn testimony. He said, this is how I'm going to die. He also said apparently he tried to save Rosanne Boyland, but Julie, who's been going through all of the video, says there's no video of him attempting to resuscitate her at any point because she's watched all of this. Says further, there's no video and it doesn't even show her anywhere in her vicinity at the time. So a lot of questions about this story. Another one. They're saying Gonell has just lied. And so there was this other clip before we go through and play the actual video footage so you can judge for yourself. Here was one clip when he was talking with NBC News.
Sergeant Gonell realized something else was wrong. He was injured, and seriously. A thrown speaker device crushed his foot, and a stolen riot shield and police baton ripped into his shoulder and right hand.
I'm working with through physical therapy. I had 2 surgeries already.
9 months later, he's still off the job, trying to recover physically.
My right thumb, it still hurts.
Mm-hmm. Right thumb still hurts. And you heard this journalist person say that I thought he said it was ripped open. Didn't he say something was ripped open?
One speaker device crushed his foot, and a stolen riot shield and police baton ripped into his shoulder and right hand.
Ripped into his shoulder and his right hand. Ripped into it. And I'm not a medical doctor, but I'm not sure that I see like a scar there. Like, or what's he pointing to right there?
Into his shoulder and right hand.
I'm working with through physical therapy. I had 2 surgeries already.
9 months later, he's still off the job, trying to recover physically.
My right thumb, it still hurts.
Still hurts, yeah. Yeah, man, I've stubbed my thumb too. It really does hurt. Sometimes, you ever stub your toe? I mean, it hurts even worse than your thumb. Man, it hurts for like a couple hours for sure. So CNN also had a story about this. This guy had to resign because of his injuries. Wow, you're kidding. Officer was injured on January 6th, says resigning wasn't his choice, but he had to because he was so injured. A U.S. Capitol Police officer, according to CNN, injured on January 6th, said the mob did that to me. It's a tough decision that after 16 years, I've got to retire. I'm leaving now because of my own accord, because of the people who support Trump. He announced his departure, citing the riot and lingering trauma as the key reason he decided not to return. They said, we're grateful for his service. He said there was a mean photo that somebody taped on his computer, that they crumbled it and threw it into the trash. And then he scanned the photo, and apparently it was a mean photo that somebody taped on his computer. Might have been another Capitol Hill police officer who said, hey, bro, you're full of crap. So since responding to the attack on the Capitol nearly 2 years ago, Gonell has become the public face of the insurrection's toll. Gonell, here you see, Gonell was badly beaten on January 6th. as rioters transcended on the U.S. Capitol, bludgeoned police and sprayed chemical irritants. And I get really irritated about this. It's like stolen valor, man. They said that Brian Sicknick was murdered by the mob, and that's not true. You can go read the Capitol Hill police statement about that. They say that he died of natural causes the following day. And they say, yeah, that maybe the other, the riot was a contributing factor or something like that, but it was not even closely related to the cause of death. And so they sold that to all of us like it was true. Like the Trump rioters murdered Brian Sicknick. Not true at all. So they just make up stuff. And it's disgusting to think about, law enforcement lying about stuff and making stuff up. But they do. Gonell was badly beaten, they said. He was caught in a tunnel of the West Gate, engaging some of the most brutal fighting of the day. The hours-long fight, here we go, was left Gonell with injuries to his foot and shoulder, spent months undergoing multiple surgeries and extensive medical rehabilitation. All right, and we're going to watch the video. Multiple surgeries and extensive medical rehabilitation. He eventually returned to the department working light duty. Although my goal has been to return to full and unrestricted duty, my medical conditions are permanent. Oh, man. So, man, he'll probably get lifetime this, lifetime that, all sorts of other amazing things. Having to return to the scene of the crime almost every day has become unbearable. It's in my best interest to take time off. Yeah. And so, all right, well, here's the video footage. And, this is, you can be the judge of this. You can see what happened. You can make the argument, if you want to play devil's advocate, that he's all juiced up on adrenaline and stuff, and that maybe the injuries aren't that bad, but maybe not. Maybe this is a guy who is like other, if you're a lawyer or you've like a personal injury case, other plaintiffs, you get in a car accident and you see that person who's like, oh, my neck, oh, my neck, oh, my back, oh, I need a lawyer to help me recover. All these personal injury attorneys everywhere, right? They're all just crashing into each other. You sure your neck doesn't hurt? You sure? Because I can recover for you on that. Kind of feels like one of those to me. But so here's the video. You'll see we superimposed in some of his, dramatic interviews with the other news sites. Here's what it all looks like.
What was the worst thing they called you?
Traitor.
Traitor.
Why was that the worst thing?
That's Gonell. He's walking around. He looked pretty good there.
Because I serve my country. I want to see.
Right foot looks good.
To protect.
Mask comes off. Shoulder looks good.
Foreign threats.
Don't see any blood on the hands.
But yet here I am battling them in our own capital. I got hurt.
You got hurt? What was hurt? What was hurt?
I would do it again if I have to.
Yeah, I'm sure
it's
you
my
would.
job. Kept saying, Trump sent me. We won't listen to you. We are here to take over the Capitol. We are here to hang my pens. They thought we were there for them, and we weren't.
He's
so they
still
turned
just
against us.
moseying around over there.
It was very scary because I thought I was going to lose my life right there.
Puts his mask on so he doesn't catch COVID.
Testing my wife.
All right, kind of just hanging out now.
And all I said to her, I'm okay.
Put his COVID mask
She
on.
would never. When I came in,
Make sure you don't catch that COVID.
she wanted to hug me. And I told her no.
All right, those hands look pretty good. We're looking at those hands down there. Don't see a broken thumb. Don't see bloody hands anywhere. This is after it's all over. Looks like his mobility looks pretty good. Moving around. Foot looks,
Because I was covered.
Foot looks good.
I was covered in
On the
pepper
radio.
spray. My hands were bleeding.
Your hands were bleeding?
Still.
They're bleeding? What? Where? Where's the blood, man? I don't see it anywhere. I don't see it. I'm looking at both hands. All right, let's go back a little bit. No, I don't see it. My hands were bleeding? Where? Where, bro? They're both right there on your chest. They look pretty clear to me.
I was covered in pepper spray. My hands were bleeding.
Okay.
Still. And I couldn't even sleep because I took a shower, and instead of helping,
Yeah.
that re-inflamed the chemicals.
It had soaked through your clothes.
Yes.
Yeah, he's covered.
Took a bath with milk. Give my wife a hug. And I started crying.
Why?
Because I got
Everything that
attacked.
happened, I didn't think I would be able to see them.
Mm-hmm.
I went to my son's bed and gave him a hug. He was asleep still.
All right, so he's still just moseying around. You can just see. Let's fast forward, see if anything changes. Still on his hand. I still don't see any blood coming anywhere. And so now he's moseying around. And we'll pick it up here. Now he's testifying in front of Congress.
I vividly heard officers screaming in agony and pain just an arm length from me. I didn't know at that time, but that was Officer Hodges, and he's here today to testify. I, too, was being crushed by the rioters. I could feel myself losing oxygen and recall thinking to myself, this is how I'm going to die, defending this entrance. Many of the officers fighting alongside me were calling for shields because their shields had been stripped from them by the rioters. I was one of the few officers left with a shield, so I spent the majority of my time at the front of the line. I later find out that my wife and relatives were here in the U.S. and abroad. Were frantically calling and texting me from 2 p.m. onward.
All right, so now he's turning around. Look, he's shaking his hands a little bit.
Because they were watching the turmoil.
Turns around, stretching out, feeling good, loosening up.
Because they were watching the turmoil on television.
Looking like he's moving on that foot pretty good, too.
It was now until 4:26 p.m. after giving CPR to one of the rioters who breached the Capitol in an effort to save her life.
That's Roseanne Boylan.
That I finally had a chance to let my own family know that I was alive.
Did he say he gave her CPR?
On television. It was now until 4:26 p.m. after giving CPR to one of the rioters who breached the Capitol in an effort to save her life that I finally had a chance to let my own family know that I was alive.
Wait a minute. Did he just say he was giving her CPR? What? I'm pretty sure that's what he said. I don't see him giving her CPR. I see a bunch of other people giving her CPR and trying to help her, but not him.
Reached the Capitol in an effort to save her life that I CPR to. It was now until 4:26 p.m. after giving CPR to one of the rioters who breached the Capitol in an effort to save her life that I finally had a chance to let my own family know that I was alive.
Maybe that's who he was radioing or something.
After order has been restored at the Capitol, in many hours, I arrived home at nearly 4 a.m. on January 7th. I had to push my wife away from me because she wanted to hug me. And I told her no, because of all the chemical that my uniform had on.
Those other guys, though, around him are not that worried about it. And this guy he's going to go talk to, apparently the chemicals aren't that bad for him either. Now they're going.
I couldn't sleep because the chemical reactivated after I took a shower.
There he is over there on the backside.
My skin was burning. I finally fell asleep 2 hours later, completely, physically, and mentally exhausted. Yet by 8 o'clock a.m.
you were an officer at a riot.
I was already back.
Yeah, you were an officer at a riot. That's your job.
And I continued to work for 15 consecutive days until after the inauguration.
Wow.
I made sure to work despite my injuries because I wanted to continue doing my job and help secure the Capitol complex. More than 6 months later, I'm still trying to recover from my injuries.
Yeah. That thumb too, man. A thumb.
Many of my fellow
thumb.
Capitol officers, as well as MPD officers, suffer.
There was a picture of Donald Trump taped to my computer screen.
Do you think it was somebody joking around, somebody being a jerk, somebody trying to intimidate
He's
you?
walking
What's
pretty
your
good right there.
I had no idea, but I did. First, I crumbled it, put it in the trash, but then I said to myself, no, I can't now that.
Got pretty close to that woman right there, asking her not too worried about that pepper spray on that one.
That happened, and because that's going to entice them to do it again. So I reach out to, I scan it, send it out to the chain command and tell them, like, this is unacceptable, and it is very insensitive of whoever did it, whether they did it jesting or not.
Right, because you.
Yeah, I wonder if he had just come back from Subway. Did the sign say this is MAGA country? Capitol Police officer?
Hold Donald Trump responsible for the riot. That's the reason. That's the point they were trying to get at.
I guess.
What are you going to do now?
I'm writing. I'm just completed a book.
Oh!
I turned it in today.
Just completing a book and turning it in. Amazing. So not a big surprise. Now, of course, you can be the judge of that. He looks pretty okay to me, kind of hanging around on that foot. Shoulder looks good. Sounds like he had a rough night's sleep, which I think is probably true. I mean, if you get home late, your sleep cycle can be off a little bit. And if you got to get up the next morning, it's hell being tired. And when I get tired, I get pretty cranky too. So, I can relate to those things. But all of the other fictional narratives do have real world consequences. And so this guy, even though he might be living in his little deluded fantasy land, is causing real pain and suffering to people who are going through the system. Julie Kelly says Officer Gonell's lies about J6 actually matter. He goes to trials and he files victim impact statements that say stuff like this. He said, in one case, Your Honor, on January 6, I rose to the occasion as a police officer. And his actions, look, he says, Mr. Fitzsimmons' actions during the insurrection severely injured me when he was tearing my arm and shield as he violently pulled me into the mob. All right, that's what he writes. So this goes in front of a judge, and he says, I was severely injured. Did you see that at all? I was certain I would not survive that ordeal. Michael Fanone was punched and tased. He was beaten and tased. I'm certain I would not have survived. At the mouth of the tunnel, he tells us, somebody tried to grab me. Due to his actions, my family and I have suffered physically, mentally, financially. He ended my law enforcement career. He did? You resigned. I can no longer do the job I loved. So anytime you stop somebody who's a criminal, that's them stopping you. That's all accepted risk. Anyways, so he was involved in stopping criminality, and now he's blaming the criminal for wrecking his career or something. It's like, all right. So, the point is, these letters went out. He said that they were injuring, threatened. He says family and friends were beaten. These people should be prosecuted to the end of the earth. And the DOJ is complying. And so it's a really sad set of affairs. It's a gut punch when you see people who are openly dishonest, exploiting something, whether it's for fame or finances. Their stories always change a little bit. And, I think as Americans and as people, we want to give police officers the benefit of the doubt by default, or at least we did. The question is, are we still going to do that when these people are exploiting this for their own ends, for their own gain, and the evidence doesn't match the stories they tell? Of course, more will be revealed on January 6th, and we'll continue to cover it as this stuff gets exposed. All right, my friends, now we're changing gears a little bit, and we're talking about 2024. It feels like deja vu all over again. We went through 2020 talking about litigation being filed in various states around the country. Democrats are smart. They move pieces around like on a chessboard. And this guy is one of the chess masters. In 2020, he filed lawsuits under various names like the Retired Association of America, Michigan Retired People's Party. And they would all file these claims, and they would change very important rules that may have impacted the outcome of the election. Some people say it did. In fact, in Wisconsin, we know that the vote totals there were only 20,600 votes. That was the difference between Trump and Joe Biden. And Marc Elias filed lawsuits in 2020. He's doing it again in 2024. Here's some background on this before we see exactly what he's trying to do in Wisconsin, which is a very important state, very close margins. He's trying to get the absentee rules changed. Some background on this from Yahoo. They say that a new lawsuit was filed in Wisconsin by a national Democratic law firm that seeks once again to allow voters to return absentee ballots into drop boxes. So after 2020, the Supreme Court in Wisconsin said you can't do that. But Marc Elias and the Elias Law Group filed another lawsuit. The court is going to change power very soon. 2 weeks from now, the Wisconsin Supreme Court is going to flip from conservative to liberal, which is why this lawsuit is being filed right now. So that when it lands in front of the Supreme Court, the Wisconsin Supreme Court, which will now be liberal, will grant it. Election law challenges like this are among many issues that the liberal court is expected to rule on. There were other rulings. The Supreme Court in Wisconsin said that the elections commissions did not have the authority to tell election clerks that drop boxes could be placed around Wisconsin. Of course, Marc Elias says that is unconstitutional, and they also want signatures waived. So let's take a look at this lawsuit. There will be many more of these. They are going to be filing these in states like Arizona, Michigan, Georgia, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and they're getting started early this election cycle. This was filed July 20th, 2023 in Wisconsin. Same people that we're familiar with, literal deja vu from 2020, the Alliance for Retired Americans. And if you were here with us during the last election, this was the same type of filing that we saw in many locations. This is how they get standing on these claims. And so Elias and his other entities are suing the Wisconsin Election Commission. And they're saying that this is a lawsuit. And in other words, the government, you have to respond to us because you are violating our civil rights. Here's what Marc Elias says. He says the Wisconsin Constitution guarantees the right to vote. For more than a century, Wisconsin has protected these rights. But this case brings a constitutional challenge to 3 rules that might burden the vote. So when we talk about voting rights, we have this spectrum, almost competing interests. We talk about voter enfranchisement, which you often hear from the left, like the right to vote. Everybody deserves the right to vote. You know, your voice, your vote, all that means everybody votes no matter what. You can vote at a drive-through. You can vote by text message, vote 3 times by text. Who cares? It's your voice, man. Go vote. On the other side of the spectrum, we have voter integrity. We say, wait a minute now, it's not, you can't text message it. You need ID. You need to verify you are who you say you are. We need proper chain of custody from the ballots. You can't just Xerox them and send them in. And that's called voter integrity. So voter enfranchisement versus voter integrity. And we're always trying to find the balance between the two. How can we have integrity in our voting that also enfranchises a lot of people? And this is this balance that we play with back and forth. But here in Wisconsin, after 2020, they said that was a little bit too much enfranchisement, if you know what I mean. We're going to have a little bit more voter integrity this next election. And now they're challenging that. They're saying, wait a minute, that's too much voter integrity. You're going to require IDs and signatures and all this stuff. That means we can't steal this thing. And so we want to pull it back and call those new changes unconstitutional. And we're talking about 20,000 votes. It's a very tight margin here. So this case is challenging 3 voter integrity rules. They say it makes it more difficult for voters to cast an absentee ballot. Wisconsin long ago said that voting is more than just a mere privilege. And absentee voting is a very important part of what we're doing in Wisconsin. Long been able to have no excuse absentee ballots cast. Many people rely on this. Over the past 15 years, 4.6 million ballots have gone out. It's important for people with limited mobility and all sorts of other things. But now, despite all of this, Wisconsin, the legislature, has improperly erected multiple barriers to absentee voting, which makes it difficult for Wisconsinites to vote. This case challenges those rulings. Priorities USA is a nonprofit. They're working for the Dems. They're registering and spending $75 million in Wisconsin. Good Lord. The challenged restrictions are harming them. Wisconsin people retired for Alliance for Retired Americans, 15,000 members in Wisconsin, so they're getting standing through there. And the rest of the people who are involved in this case. Now, for background, they say in 2018 in the midterms, over 500,000 Wisconsin voters used ballots, driven by the COVID pandemic. That surged in 2020, and they changed a bunch of rules in that era. Interest in absentee voting remains high. Look, this is not like voting by mail. In 2020, more than 2 million Wisconsinites successfully cast absentee ballots. When I think of an absentee ballot, I think of it as a non-normal ballot, right? There's a small portion of people who are not in the state who vote absentee. But 2 million is a big chunk of that. And so I think that this, as a definition, it's just voting by mail. Interest in absentee voting remains high. Could be wrong about that. Nearly 760,000 Wisconsinites voted using absentee ballots. But for the hundreds of thousands of Wisconsin voters who rely on absentee ballots, they're going to get abused. The state agency that administers elections created new guidance to regulate the elections. They've issued a manual which provides new rules and how they can comply with the law. Now, this is what they're so upset about. The new manual says that if you use an absentee ballot, you've got to have a witness requirement. It says that if you use an absentee ballot, it must be witnessed by a U.S. adult citizen, and you must vote in the presence of an adult witness. And they don't like that. They don't want you to have witnesses. The witness requirement is extremely burdensome for many voters. More than 600,000 Wisconsin voters, including members of this alliance, do not have anyone in their house who can act as a witness. They've got limited mobility, and so they can't vote if we have this. In 2020, under COVID, they issued guidance with solutions to this law, saying that people could drive up, you could do video chats, you could Skype or FaceTime, you could leave it outside the door, people will show up at your house. These solutions are still burdensome, and so we can't have witnesses. The waning of COVID-19 has not eliminated the burdens of the witness requirement. Hundreds of thousands of witnesses, of Wisconsinites, don't have someone who can verify this for them. And if there is any error on the ballot, they say that you can only cure this once again back in the company of the person who was the witness in the first place. They say this witness requirement also violates the privacy secret ballot rights under the Constitution. And there are other less burdensome ways that we can get voter integrity without doing the witnesses. All right. So they want no witnesses for their absentee ballots, which is a big portion of their voting. They also don't want drop boxes to go away. In 2020, they used drop boxes. Thousands of voters used drop boxes without incidents, as we know. But the Supreme Court and others have said it's okay. But since some rulings, they said that you cannot accept drop box ballots anymore. And they're upset about that. They say election mail delay is documented. The drop box are better than the mail. In the midterms, something like, wow, one of the 5 lowest performing processing and delivering centers, nearly 14% of election mail was delivered later than expected. And there's also ballot delivery problems. So in other words, the mail is less reliable than the drop boxes. They really, really love these drop boxes, man. I wonder what that's all about. They say it's no answer to say that voters should just mail their ballots back early. Many voters don't decide until the days before. And drop boxes allow them to drop those off conveniently, safely, so that they can be returned on time. We don't want to mail them. We want to drop them off. There's also questions about the Election Day cure deadline. If they sign the certificate, there's a deadline by which, if there's a problem with the ballot, they've got to cure it. And they say that is not appropriate. They say Wisconsin has various different statutes. These are the legal principles that interpret how we're going to govern this. And they're saying essentially that they want this new regulation, this new rule, this new election manual to be declared unconstitutional, to throw it out. Many Wisconsin voters vindicate their voting rights through the absentee ballot. Requiring voters to jump through these hoops burdens their fundamental right to vote, and therefore it's unconstitutional. They want declaratory judgments that we can have drop boxes back and that all of the old rules are in play. The Election Day cure deadlines are what they were, so that they can run the same playbook that they ran in 2020. They want the instructions in Wisconsin to be held invalid. Same with the manual, deeming that they all violate the Wisconsin Constitution, signed by these lawyers from the Elias Law Group. Same people involved in a ton of litigation in 2020. And so they are doing it again, my friends. All of those little changes around the margins, they all add up. Last time they did it on the back of COVID, but this time they're going to do it on the back of, we did it during COVID and you can't change it back. We've already done it. It's way better for us. And if you change it back, now you're violating a new right that we've essentially created by changing the rules under the COVID pretext. This is going to continue to happen. We'll see it in other states. This guy and his law firm, very aggressive with this. We'll see if the Republicans have an answer for it as the election moves forward. Thank you for subscribing as we continue to cover. We'll see you on the next one. All right, my friends. Now, wrapping it up with some January 6th updates. Jack Smith's prosecution of Donald Trump continues. We've got questions about who the witnesses will be, and we now know that Rudy Giuliani apparently gave a bunch of documents that Jack Smith really wants over to his prosecutors. The story comes from CNN. They say that Jack Smith, as we know, is trying to find fraud intent, that Trump knew the election was done appropriately and lawfully, but he was trying to defraud the country nonetheless. And they're looking through the documents to say that Trump should have known or did know, or that his rejection of his own advisor's advice constitutes recklessness such that it meets the criminal threshold for intent, the mens rea of the crime. CNN says special counsel Jack Smith got documents from Giuliani and the team that tried to find the fraud after 2020. And this was a big part of the aftermath of the election. And so there's a bunch of documents here. Among the materials that Jack Smith got were the investigations by Rudy. The documents had been withheld by the New York Police Commissioner, Bernie Kerik, who claimed that they were privileged, only to be handed over to Smith on Sunday at what appears to be the late stages of the federal investigation. The files include affidavits claiming that there were widespread, quote, irregularities, shoddy statistical analyses, supposedly revealing fraudulent activities, and opposition research about a senior employee over at the Dominion Company. Documents were turned over by Kerik also connect him and other members of the Trump legal team to efforts to smear Dominion, something that is the subject of a lawsuit right now. Now, the tranche of documents includes a 29-page dossier on the executive, Eric Coomer, detailing his anti-Trump rhetoric, his background, working for the voting machine companies, and other things. There's a lot here. Coomer has brought a defamation lawsuit. The documents turned over also include a 105-page report from after the election compiled by the Trump campaign and contained Rudy Giuliani's allegations. So it's an interesting story. We'll see what Jack Smith does with it. We'll check in with this woman. Her name is Alyssa Farah Griffin. Evidently was an official within the Trump administration. And we're talking about this intentionality. They're saying Trump took actions. He made orders, made statements, did certain things, gave certain speeches. Those were the actions. But did he have the mental state, the mind that was guilty enough to say that he was knowingly doing something criminal, or he was recklessly doing something criminal? Or did he genuinely believe that this whole thing was stolen and this was his best leadership in the best interest of America? They're trying to show that that latter explanation is not true. They're trying to show that this guy's corrupt, and so they're dragging out people like Alyssa to say, what do you think?
Alyssa Farah Griffin, Tom Dupree, and Bakari Sellers. Great to see all of you. So, Alyssa, I'm curious to get your response to this new reporting, because you worked in the White House around this time. Did you notice a shift in the former president's attitude from praising election security to all of a sudden doubting it just a few weeks later?
This was remarkable to hear because I'm familiar with that meeting, and I know there were others where former CISA Chris Krebs had briefed the former president about just how secure American elections were and the many steps that had been taken to put us in a place where we could truly trust the institution of elections. But it was when about, I would say, April or May of 2020, kind of the height of COVID and also the former president's poll numbers began to plummet, that he started raising doubts about mail-in voting. And I actually remember being in an Oval Office meeting about that time where the campaign called the president and I was sitting there and they basically said, stop casting doubt on mail-in voting. You're going to depress your own voter turnout. So, I mean, I don't want to try too hard to get into the mind of Donald Trump, but I think a motivating factor in this entire election myth, big lie, was the fact that he, for the first time, realized he might lose, and he wanted to start paving the way for how he would say he didn't truly lose.
Yeah, and this all speaks to...
And that is just this big setup. He sees that COVID's coming, poll numbers not looking so good, and, man, this thing might go awry. So he better start pre-butting the outcome. He better start saying mail-in ballots are problems so that when it does go bad, he can blame something else, not his own performance, is what their thesis is. But that is being used to show that Trump had that malicious intent, that he knew that he lost. The poll numbers were real. The election was real. Everything else after the fact that came out of Trump's mouth was not.
The issue of intent, because if he was briefed on these details, seemed to be proud of them, actually wanted to hold a press conference. What happened in those next few weeks that changed his mind? And about timing, Tom, what do you make of the timing and the difference between the 9 months here before the election and the change in the president's tone and view on election integrity?
Right. Well, the fact that 9 months elapsed, I don't think is going to be hugely significant to the jury. In other words, if Jack Smith can persuade the jury that Trump genuinely thought our elections were secure at the beginning of 2020, it's unlikely his opinion would have changed by the end of 2020. And look, I think what's significant here...
I totally disagree with that. At the beginning of 2020, there was no COVID. The elections were normal. After March, and in the months leading up to the election, stuff got changed all over the country. All over the country, including what we could talk about. We could no longer even speak openly. But that's outside of the election mechanics. Specifically within the operations of the elections, there were rules that were being changed, in my opinion, unconstitutionally all throughout this country. State legislatures have the authority to govern elections. When Marc Elias files a lawsuit and a Secretary of State who's within the executive branch or the election committee within the executive branch and some judge in another branch, they agree that, oh no, my COVID, to save America, we've got to move these rules around. That's a breach of the Constitution. They are usurping the legislature. So at the beginning of 2020, that was not the case. By the time November rolled around, that was absolutely the case. And so Trump is well within his purview to change his opinion on this. If they're trying to pin him down in early 2020 as though like elections are amazing and his opinion is revised, so what? All of our opinions were revised. I used to think we had a real country prior to COVID and that we cared about things like free speech and like not shutting people's businesses down without due process or not denying people medical care because they didn't take your shot. We all thought the country was a whole different place. And then we found out it's not. So Trump's allowed to do that. And the attempt to pin him down, I think, is not going to work.
Is that although we may not want to get into the mind of Donald Trump, there are going to be some jurors in Washington, D.C., if he is indicted, who will be asked to get into the mind of Donald Trump and figure out whether or not he genuinely believed this election was tainted by fraud or not. And so I think this evidence of this cybersecurity meeting will go a long way, and it will help Jack Smith show that President Trump knew or should have known that this election was not, in fact, tainted by fraud, at least to the extent that it could have resulted in a different outcome.
Right. And knew or should have known or was being reckless is really the standard that they are going to be working for. And they're going to work hard on that. And so we've got one final clip. This is Matt Gaetz, who is saying the truth about what this really is, which is, of course,
don't you see that that's kind of the thing, Director Wray,
interference. Here he is with Greg Kelly over on Newsmax.
Than with the answers I got from Director Wray. It's interesting that the one fact he seemed to know was an obscure recruiting piece of data from Florida. He didn't know basic questions about how many times the FBI broke the law on his watch. And we hear time and again this promise of change, but every time a court or an inspector general or a congressional committee looks under the hood, we see how rotten it is with far too many of them. Just this past week, I was taking the deposition of the former head of the foreign intelligence group that was called the FIDF, and she said that everyone there had the ability to query U.S. persons in the 702 database, and they didn't even require approval to do it. That's how pervasive the violation of all of our rights has become.
Yeah, you know, when he hit you with that thing about recruitment in Florida, it was like, yeah, he was ready. He was going to show you. He was going to show you. So he actually had staff do work to track down that data. It was ridiculous on his part. Very well handled. Look.
He was talking about that exchange. Greg Kelly's right about that. That exchange was brilliant because Christopher Wray said, you know, Matt Gaetz, Florida loves the FBI. Okay, they're coming to our office and like ringing the doorbell to come work for us. And he said, oh yeah? Well, the people of Florida deserve better than your crap agency. Minus that crap agency part. And it was fun.
What are you going to do about this Jack Smith? I mean, it's getting out of control. Looks like he's on the eve of indicting President Trump again. I hear you got something cooking.
I think every member of Congress should join my legislation to defund the Jack Smith investigation.
Right on.
I don't need Jack Smith to tell me what happened on January 6th. I was there. I saw President Trump encourage people to peacefully and patriotically go to places where permits had been reserved with city government for lawful protest activity. And while anyone who did harm to police certainly deserves to be held accountable for that, you had so many Americans who had barriers taken down in front of them, and they didn't know that they were committing some technical violation of federal criminal law. Now Jack Smith is trying to weaponize the U.S. government against not just President Trump, but against our entire political movement. That's what people need to understand. This isn't even really about President Trump. It's about the fact that there are tens of millions of us who demand better from our current government than we're getting. And when we stand up for it, we're called domestic terrorists and extremists and nationalists. And the reality is we want a great country for everyone. I don't expect my legislation will pass, but I think every American deserves to know where their member of Congress is counted because, Greg, Congress has equities at play here. This is not some legitimate law enforcement operation. This is election interference with a presidential federal election, and I think Congress ought to be saying more.
I completely agree with that. I think that there's still this weird tendency from some people, usually it's, you know, the middle of the road Republicans, the old guard, so to speak, the people who like things as it was when they could pretend that the DOJ was legitimate, that the FBI actually did something useful for America. But that is not the position anymore. The benefit of the doubt for the DOJ, the FBI, the IRS is gone. And they have become weaponized entities that are being used as political tools in an election. And the more we can frame it that way, the less power they have under the old banner. And so Matt Gaetz is leading the charge. Impeachment. Remember, they are label people. They are label people. So if you impeach people or you take action in Congress, even though it might not pass the Senate or it might not be signed into law by Joe Biden, the labels really sting. They hate them. So we'll continue to cover this, expecting the indictment any day now. We'll see if Giuliani's on the witness list as we continue to cover. And thank you, my friends, for subscribing wherever you're watching this. We hope we stay in touch and you join us on the next one. All right, my friends. Well, let's leave it there. We covered some good ground today. We got Giuliani, Matt Gaetz. We've got Marc Elias making his efforts known in various states around the country, including Wisconsin. We've got this guy, Aquilino Gonell, who has a very sore thumb on his right hand. Hopefully he gets recovery on that one. And we've got impeachment fever discussions taking place in Congress. And so we covered some good ground today, my friends. But now it's time to hear from you. We've got some amazingly generous super chats on YouTube, on Rumble, our friends on Locals. Before we jump in, I want to remind you about our brand new website, robertgovea.com. We've got various reports over there. And so if you go over to Robert Govea, this is what it's going to look like. You can sign up for our newsletter. Click here to get instant access. You can see the entire mind map, navigate the mind map. You can also get various reports on all of the different videos. So like this was yesterday's show. If you don't want to watch the full video, you can just go here, get a summation of the video, read through it. You see we had a nice long show yesterday. And there's also various reports on the different segments as well. So if you're interested in just one video, don't want to watch the full thing, sometimes they're long, you can read the full report. And we appreciate you signing up for the newsletter. It's how we're going to stay in touch. And we've got other stuff that we're working on here to make this the one-stop shop for all the goodies. So thanks for checking out robertgovea.com, signing up, sharing everything, following us on all the platforms, and getting those show reports. But let's see what you have to say, my friends, now about all of these topics and more. And yesterday we had a late super chat come in. Vienticus made sure we got this one. He gave us a note here. He says, this came in last minute yesterday. Thank you, V. Extremely thorough and useful. And I would have missed it. And I would have felt terrible about it. So shout out to Steel Stargazer. Thank you, Steel. Sorry we missed you yesterday. Says, do you think the DOJ and company should be dismantled and reconstructed? Well, I think, yes, I do. I don't think that they should even be reconstructed, really. I mean, I think you could have some level of criminal prosecution at a federal level, but not really domestic stuff. I think that the DOJ and the FBI should be dissolved, and they should go back to the states. Their power should go back to the states. They already have field offices and U.S. attorney offices in all of the states. Those agents can get jobs for the state level departments of public safety, and all of our federal tax dollars for all of these intelligence agencies should go back to the states. They should be, and like they could have a federal level for international crimes where they're prosecuting international crimes, but all this domestic, homegrown, violent extremism, all this crap, states can handle that. We don't need the feds to do it. All right. Good to see you there. What's the FBI going to do that a state agency can't figure out? All right. Anyways, 2012 Jameson said everything. The state agencies are a lot more competent, and we'll have a lot less insurrections out there as well. All right. And so 2012 Jameson is in the house, says, I got a big development in the works here. Well, you know how we love big developments here. 2012 Jameson in the house. And so hopefully you give us an update on whatever that is. Sounds juicy. Curtis Bartle bringing in 5 new memberships. And we love our members. Thank you, Curtis, for bringing in 5 new members. We do member-only morning streams in the morning, Arizona time, sometimes afternoon, elsewhere. But we'd love it if you joined us. We've got Jason H., Andrew R., we got Clyde B., John Doodles joining us, and Maynard, all in the house, courtesy of Curtis Bartle. Thank you very much, Curtis, for sending that one in. Hey, Red-Blooded American with 10 membos. Woo, woo. Man, we've got Euro Wars, Jerry C., Dan, Mama Pillows in the house, Silent. We got Andy H., Adam K., Greg E., Boiler Operator, and Trevor L. in the house, courtesy of Red-Blooded American. Thank you, Red-Blooded American. Extremely generous, and we're grateful. And so we'll see everybody tomorrow morning for our members-only stream, courtesy of Red-Blooded American. We're glad that you made it here. And let's see who else is here. Dolphin fan is the man. Man, tomorrow's going to be lit. We're going to have a bunch of new members. Thank you, everybody. So L, Nikki P, M Arms, BJM, and Hard to Like all got gifted membos courtesy of Dolphin fan. And so tomorrow is going to be fun in our members only chat. We're looking forward to it, my friends. Odessia, I think we were having some locals problems. Locals was being a little bit wonky today. I think I was gathering. And Odessia says, works for me. And I love it when you test with tips. I love it when you test stuff with tips. Is this working? Another $1. Yeah, try it again. M Arms says, how old are those bikini girls in the Corvettes? Yeah, it's a good question. It's one of those questions don't really want to ask. And, you know, are those his, like, well, it's a weird deal. What's he doing with dad? Like, Joe doesn't know about any of that. Who are those kids? Are those family members? Are those his cousins or something? And if those are his cousins, if those are family members, why is he doing that, like, I'm a badass bro look in his daddy's Corvette at age like 48 or whatever he was? What a joke. And he's like the most powerful dude in the country. Newbie of Death over on Rumble says fiduciary for Newbie of Death. And I don't even know what that was referencing. Joe Biden? I don't know. They're not acting like fiduciaries. Jeremiah is here. Thank you, Jeremiah. 5x5 sent in a 5x5 tip. Thank you, Jeremiah. Says, talk about it after the matter is closed? What? That's like Pelosi saying we can read the bill after we vote it in. It is like that. And she's not actually going to, they're not actually going to talk about anything after it's closed, right? It's all a delay tactic. Once it's closed, do you think they're going to say anything useful? No, it's closed. It's all done. There's nothing to talk about. And it'll just go away. Amazing. This one came in from the Rubos at rubossaltshop.com. Says, Hunty Poo's attorneys are in trouble for lying to the county clerk. Facing sanctions. Well, we might have to get into that story tomorrow. Here's the headline on it. This is from the Daily Mail. Here's the headline. Exclusive. Hunter Biden's lawyers face sanctions after being accused of lying to the clerk. Wow, that's not good. It's not good to lie to a judge. Oh boy, they don't like that. Being accused of lying to the clerk. Yikes. Yeah, that's not a good thing. They ordered Hunter's lawyers to explain themselves by 9 p.m. or be sanctioned. That judge is pissed. Great. The alleged dirty trick was a ploy to remove testimony from the IRS whistleblowers. Earlier today, they filed a brief with the judge asking the judge to toss the sweetheart deal. Oh, this is the... Wow, in the criminal tax case. Wow. Okay, this is even a bigger deal. I thought this was the Arkansas baby mama case. This is a huge deal. So the alleged dirty trick was a ploy to remove testimony from the whistleblowers from the court docket. Now, all this is under seal. It is claimed that someone from Hunter Attorney's office, the former law firm, later called the clerk, pretending to be from the office of Smith's attorney, asking them to remove the original filing and the testimony. A staffer is accused of pretending to be somebody else, asking them to remove the alleged tricksters from Latham and Watkins. Litigation Services Director Jessica Bengals. Wow. This is like a major scandal. Okay, so this is 2 pages. Our firm represents Jason Smith. We received word that our filing was removed from the docket. They checked the docket, they filed something. We contacted the clerk's office, and we were advised that someone contacted the court representing they worked with my office, and they asked the court to remove this from the docket. We immediately advised that was inaccurate. They said, you guys have to refile. We've done that now. I advised opposing counsel were concerned by this contact about this. Opposing counsel admitted that they had contacted the court, but said we had done nothing improper. Mr. Clark from Hunter's firm says, I stand by all my statements. I hope you have an affidavit from the clerk in support of yours. He says, so here's my affidavit. If Mr. Clark or other counsel wants to move to seal publicly available documents, he should do so by way of motion. Wow. Okay. This is amazing. Theodore Kietla. Okay, so they're going to say that what you filed on the docket is improper. So what you filed on the docket contains our taxpayer information. So they're going to make an excuse. They're going to say that we had the right to ask that it was removed. You're declining to file it under seal. So they're going to say you filed it openly and we will not be filing under seal. All of this was made public. It's not under seal. Well, we're going to be moving to seal the filing and we reserve all rights. Okay, that's fine. You can do that. We understand. Thanks. Move to file it under seal, but don't call the court and tell them that you want it removed from the docket. That's not appropriate. Your email is inaccurate. As far as I'm aware, the managing attorney from Latham called the clerk's office to note that personal tax information had been filed in a non-redacted manner. Your attempts to publicly file my client's financial information with no protections are improper. We're going to seek sanctions against you. Chris, you should probably take a step back from your statements. The clerk's office advised that it was represented to her that the request was being made by my firm. We will be advising the judge of this improper conduct. Yeah, you're allowed to ask the judge to do something, but you can't you can't pretend you're from the other law firm. Holy moly. All right, so all this stuff, the judge wants a response by 5 p.m. tonight. That's some good stuff there. That is some really juicy stuff. All right, where the heck was I? What are we talking about right now? I'm all discombobulated. All right, thank you for that update. Let's get back to these amazing super chats. Wow. All right, so we'll be covering that one certainly tomorrow. I'm sure there'll be fallout for that. All right, so that came in from the Rubos over at rubossaltshop.com. Rubosaltshop.com. 2012 Jameson says that cop is a liar. He would be on workers' comp. He certainly feels like he's trying to come up with a big claim for that, doesn't he? No doubt about it. Hey, Third Proverb says, was this the first unarmed insurrection in world history? Yeah, but that guy did grab the podium. So do you need arms if you have the podium? I don't think so. Good to see you, Third. This one from Michael Allen Hughes says, this guy needs to be charged with insurance fraud. It's certainly one way to approach it, no doubt about it. He's, benefits. I'm sure he's getting a lot of goodness out of that. As a workers' comp attorney, he is an insult to workers. There you go, from 2012 Jameson right there. As a workers' comp attorney, he's an insult to workers. It's kind of what I was like. It's like, hey man, there are other officers, even on January 6th, who actually did suffer injuries, right? And they're not making their speeches to CNN like you are. So it feels like it's insulting to them. Maybe that's why they put a Trump sticker on his, or maybe he printed out the Trump sticker. I don't know. Rocky Water says, top-notch coverage, Rob. Thanks for covering the right stuff. Thanks, Rocky. I appreciate that, my friend. I do, we do pick some stuff that is topical. Sometimes we pick other stuff that's not as topical, but I think it's important. But we do try to cover the right stuff. Thanks, Rocky. Appreciate that. Fred says, Marc Elias is one of the most dangerous men in the United States. He's very effective. He's very effective. I've been screaming about his efforts, and the Democrats funnel in millions of dollars to these people. So they have endless resources to just sit around, scheme, and file lawsuits. And I don't know that the Republicans have any real response to this. In other words, it's just the election committee in Wisconsin that's going to be there. Is the GOP going to do anything? Who knows? All right, good to see you, Fred. This one came in from K. Bean. Says, hey, Rob, I heard Biden's chef took out a $10 million life insurance policy today and signed up for swimming lessons. From K. Bean. That sounds about right. Yeah. The Clintons probably got one on him too. Yeah. Biden chef. So we've got Obama chef, Clinton chef drowned, and Biden chef is now taking out a $10 million life insurance policy, and he learns how to swim. That's a good one from K. Bean. Biden chef knows how to swim. All right. He's going to be walking around with floaties on, chopping up those vegetables in floaties. No, I'm good. Do you want to take, you're not in the pool though. You're in the white. No, I'm good. I'm good. Just let me go. Good to see you, Kevin. We got Salty Sarge says a trifecta of corrupt evil people on today's show. A dirty cop, a corrupt lawyer, and Alyssa Farah Griffin is getting paid big bucks as a co-host of The View. Is she on The View? Gosh, that makes all the sense in the world. Good to see you. Thank you for that one, Salty Sarge. Linda Ramey says 2,000 mules equals drop boxes. They really love those drop boxes. I wonder why that is. Isn't it curious? Salty Sarge sends this one. Says time to make that peach mint ice cream. Love that peach mint ice cream, baby. Summer's heating up. Keep up the good work, Rob. Delicious. One of the best flavors. Peach mint ice cream. Get yours today. And FMF Doc is in the house. What's up, FMF? Says, as a veteran who is an amputee, I call foul of that cop. Maybe I'll look into calling him to the Senate floor. From FMF Doc, who's running for Senate, challenging Lindsey Graham in South Carolina. Good to see you, FMF. And thank you, my friend, for being here. And those, my friends, are very generous, very much appreciated chats from our friends on YouTube, on Rumble, and of course, on Locals, which is where we will be going for our members only after party. I forgot to give a shout out to a new friend who I met named the Taco Rack. Sent me a very, very nice set of taco racks. And Nicholas Stanko, shout out to Nicholas Stanko. I wanted to give this a plug. Nicholas Stanko sent me a very nice email. And, you know, he's on our side of the aisle, this gentleman here. And we appreciate his good work. And he sent me some taco racks, and they are high quality, my friends. So if you're interested in a taco rack, go to tacorack.com. It's Taco Tuesday, and we do Taco Tuesday on our Locals show. And so I think tacos are on the menu for me tonight. And I've got these very nice taco racks from our friend Nicholas. And so thank you, Nicholas. Very nice email. Thanks for sharing the good word of the show. Thanks for sending me some love over here. And it's Taco Tuesday, my friends. And so we're going to indulge in some tacos. But I wanted to say thank you, Nicholas, for sending that over and for all your support. And so go to tacorack.com, my friends, tacorack.com to get yourself your taco rack. All right. And so we are going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com for our after party. We would love it if you joined us. If you're a YouTube member, you can join us for the after party. You just got to download the Telegram app and join us on Telegram. The link to Telegram is in the community tab section right in the YouTube app. So just grab that link and we'll see you over there. Also, don't forget to grab your Field of Greens, courtesy of our friends at fieldofgreens.com. And when you go over there, save 15% off with code Robert when you check out. Now, tomorrow, we've got a pretty interesting UFO hearing. And so I expect we'll hit the highlights on that in the show tomorrow. And then in a week, on July 31st, we've got Devin Archer's testimony, which supposedly is coming up. We'll see. So make sure you're subscribed, my friends, as we continue to cover all of this stuff. I want to thank the mods who mod down the fort for us. Keep things nice and orderly on the show. Thank you very much to our friends Vientikis Prime, K-Bean in the house, Just Cause, Playin' Hooky, Ronnie Cole, Zulu, Beyond Geo, Zach Nichols, our friend John Allen, Janek909, Dog Digger, Donut Mind Me, and John McGarvey in the house. Our Meme Smith, Sleepy Dog Lee, Geegum Geegum, our friend Nathan, N810. Thank you to everybody who keeps this show moving along nice and orderly. We're grateful for you. But that is it for us on this lovely, lovely Tuesday. We will be back tomorrow to do it all again. And so I hope you join us as we do. Thank you for inviting somebody to come over and join us during the live stream, same time every day. We hope to see you here so that together, with your help and your friends' help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye. Wait a minute. I forgot to do our outro. We have a new outro. All right, so we're not off yet. Here is our new outro. All right, now I'll see you right back here tomorrow.